If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Khalid Muhammad from Command 11 in Pakistan. Jeff, Jeff MD is in West Virginia this week, shooting the next season of Surviving Man with our good friend Don Man. And Randy's in a golfing tournament tonight or today. So Randy and I will be back on Wednesday. Khalid will be back tomorrow night with his Command 11 sit rep of the week. And Jeff will be back again next Monday. And as per usual, this week, Mike Glover will be with us on Wednesday like he is every Wednesday. So, man, there's a lot of shit going on right now, Khalid. I mean,
it's just unreal what's going on.
if the audience could see my desktop, you know, when we started this thing, maybe there was like a dozen tabs open in my web browser. The web browser I'm looking at right now has almost 40 tabs open in it. They're so small, I can barely differentiate from one to the next. I keep thinking to myself, man, don't click on the X, and nuke the podcast. Because if anybody's going to do that, of course, it'll be me, right? But we've got a lot of good information to share tonight. Tonight, our next episode in the Long War series is on medical collapse during and after 9/11 2.0 complex coordinated attacks on the homeland. So think of it in terms of not just hospitals in crisis, but hospitals completely shut down and or taken over by ISIS cells. Al-Qaeda in the air, ISIS on the ground is what it looks like. And then stretch it out a little bit further than that and start thinking of the supply chain breaking down, which we've described multiple times. Where's the supplies coming for the hospitals that are still functional on some level? There are no supplies for them. So before we do that, we're going to cover the conflicted question of the night first. If you're not familiar with this, conflictedthegame.com, 14 card decks set in a post-apocalyptic settings. 99% of the questions have some element of morality to them, hence the name Conflicted. So for tonight, this is a doozy, Khalid. I know how you're going to answer this already, but this is a doozy. Someone in your inner circle of trusted friends has committed an unforgivable act that only you are a witness to. He doesn't know you are aware of what happened. You decide death is the proper punishment for what he did. There is no other way. Would you take care of him secretly, or would you discuss his fate with the others and burden them as well? Wow, that's a doozy of a question, but I know exactly how you're going to answer that. So that's
an easy one.
So before we kick off your daily sit rep, I do want to bring one thing up here, and I apologize. The name escapes me. 73214. That's my high school locker combination. You know, freshman year, 1982. Ask me somebody's name 5 minutes later. I can't tell you what their freaking name is. But anyway, we got an email from somebody, Clede, and I didn't share it with anybody because I wanted to do my research first. But basically, this person said that I think it was their brother or brother-in-law is a pilot. And he asked about U.S. Marshals not being allowed to carry guns on flights. And his brother or brother-in-law said, no, they absolutely are allowed to carry guns because they have to show them to us in advance. So we know, who they are, what they have for guns, so on and so forth. And he asked me for clarification on that. So we've issued 4, what do you call them? Like a retraction or a fix. 591 episodes. 4 times we've issued a correction. I'll use that word. So here's half a correction. We're now at 4.5 corrections after this one. And Sonia Labasco is from the local area here. We have a ton of mutual friends. She's been on the podcast with me. She was a very outspoken a U.S. Marshal. Before that, she was Daytona Beach PD. And she had put some information out with regards to U.S. Marshals not being allowed to carry on flights. But there was a caveat to it that I missed. So this is on me. So Sonia Labasco, Executive Director of the Air Marshal National Council, a union representing federal air marshals, made the statement in an exclusive interview with independent journalist Brianna Morello on August 3rd, 2025. She was addressing a controversial directive from Brian Belcher, the Biden-appointed director of the Federal Air Marshal Service, which required air marshals to board deportation flights carrying violent illegal immigrants without their service firearms. These flights are commercial or chartered aircraft used to transport detainees from U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement operations. So the caveat there is pretty easy to see is that it was just on the ICE flights that we were deporting the ship bags, is not across the board. So apologies for confusion on that. And golly, I wish I could remember the name of the gentleman who emailed me, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm glad that we set the record straight on that. So we're going to go into your sit rep here, Khalid. Let me get the first story pulled up, and I'll have you speak to it first and foremost. Let me just read the beginnings of it. So just as Sarah Adams and Khalid Muhammad and myself, meaning Shane Healy, have been warning for well over 12 months, it's finally happening. U.S. National Counterterrorism Center has warned that Al-Qaeda is an active danger inside the United States and has now activated cells to conduct attacks. So Khalid, go ahead and speak to that. There's some controversy surrounding this, and I'm just going to preface your comments by saying this. When Laura Loomer, if she takes somebody's work, gives them credit, gets it out to a larger audience, I'm all about that. That's fair. But she's trying to say that she's way out in front on this 9/11 2.0 threat, and she's not. And she's taking credit for work that's been done by Sarah Adams, Khalid, and Jane Doe, who was on the Sean Ryan show. And I made a post on it today, and I'm going to make another post tomorrow, because one of the things that I am going to bring up in those posts that I didn't today on purpose is that Khalid is living in safe houses. Sarah Adams has moved 3 times because Al-Qaeda is telling her, we're going to kill you. And Jane Doe can't even give up her name because she's in so much hiding. So it's bad enough when somebody steals somebody else's work and tries to beat their chest like, they're doing this great service to America. It's a whole other thing when you do it for people who put their lives on the line for this. So Khalid, apologies for being long-winded. Take it away.
No, not at all. Look, we've always said this was a team that did this. I mean, this kind of intelligence isn't fleshed out by 2-3 people. There's a team that works together on this. The problem is that when someone steps forward and takes Joe Kent's threat assessment and says, well, look, my sources have told me this. Well, that's not your sources. That's the federal government that's told you that. The sources on this was back in April when we first broke the story. The sources on this was a year ago when Sarah Adams and Jane Doe broke this story on Sean Ryan's show. That's when this story came out. No one paid attention. I mean, we were told by so many people that we are conspiracy theorists. We are freaks. We're crazy talking about this. This can never happen in America. Now that Joe Kent has come out, and I'll even put it out this way. If you go back and look at Friday's tweet from Laura Loomer, she said, my sources have told me this. Saturday morning, she went after Joe and said that, I don't understand why you didn't say Islamic extremists. And Joe came back and said, look, Islamic extremists is too general of a term. We need to talk violent extremists. This is who we're talking about. We're not just talking about Muslims alone. We are talking about violent extremists. And there was an exchange that went back and forth, and Joe fired back a couple of times. We are happy that Joe is in the place he's in because Joe listened to Sarah and he listened to the intel that we had on this. This has been almost 18 months of hard work from 4 or 5 different people that have built this stuff together, and we will not sacrifice our position. There's a lot of people saying that Command 11 was corroborating Laura Loomer. And I went back and I posted in a couple of places that we said this in March of 2025. We didn't say it now. We said it back in March, and we've been talking about. Sarah's been talking about it. Jane Doe has been talking about it. This did not come. This didn't flesh out with one document that came out of the National Counterterrorism Center. This came out from everywhere, and it was people screaming and yelling about this. The funny part for me, and I'll put this out there, there were a couple people that approached Laura Loomer before the alert came out. Laura wouldn't touch it. Would not touch it because she thought we were full of crap. Now that Joe Kent put it out and the federal government put it out, now she's out there talking about it, saying, my sources told me. Tell us who your sources are. Because I was out there, and the tweet is still there. 18th March 2025 is when Command 11 put it out. And in the middle of March, we put out a threat assessment. The middle of April, we put out another threat assessment. And we are talking, 15, 20, 30 pages of clear detail on how this attack was going to be carried out. So tell us who your sources are, because you're repeating and regurgitating a lot of things that we said in our report, but you're not crediting the people who said it. And we're happy that the argument has now come out and people are talking about it. But what we find interesting, and Sarah came into the group that was working on this and said, congratulations to everybody, because if it wasn't for this team working together, we would not have been able to deliver this the way it is. And our fear was very simple. If the federal government didn't pay attention, if they didn't put out a threat alert, law enforcement wasn't going to listen, first responders weren't going to listen, and there would be no security at all for the American people. And we're really happy that the federal government has jumped on board and they put the alert out, and we are working to push this thing forward.
Yeah, appreciate that, Khalid. Kind of on the same topic here, I just put a link out to the live chat in a bunch of different platforms we're broadcasting to, and it's the post that I made last Thursday or Friday, just so that anybody new amongst us knows about these resources. So basically, Jane Doe, Sarah Adams broke the first part of this story, like Khalid said, on Sean Ryan. Then Khalid broke the news with regards to hospitals being a target. Then Khalid and I met, and I thought, we've got to get the word out to our fellow Americans. And this is a bit of a summary of what we found, but there are links in here. And if you scroll down where it says get it here and you click that link right there, Khalid and I released a 36-page ebook that covers these attacks from A to Z, everything in between, all the information you need to know to protect yourself and your family, what to expect. In other words, we've said many times, if you're caught on the X in one of these tier 2 cities, God forbid that happens, and the first attack goes off, you better get out of Dodge fast, because it's a setup. They're waiting for the first responders to show up 20 minutes later. Then they're going to kill a bunch of the first responders with an even bigger blast, more bombs, VBIDs, and you're going to be still sitting there on the X thinking, phew, thank God I survived that first attack. But it's not. It doesn't end. You got to get as far away from these places as you possibly can. So, Khalid, I want to bring up the next one here on Inspire. Explain what Inspire is, and then go ahead and explain this particular post.
Inspire is the Al Qaeda magazine, and if you see it, you will think you are in a bookstore buying a proper magazine. It's nice and glossy, beautiful pictures, well written. Al Qaeda and ISIS, their level of propaganda jumped like you would not believe. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Their level of propaganda went from grainy videos to, you would think that they hired a New York ad agency that was putting together all their materials, all their videos, all of their stuff. They have jumped, and Inspire and Al Qaeda's Inspire. I can't remember what ISIS's magazine is called. They've also got one. When you look at it, you would be shocked. You'd look at it and go, wow, this is like properly put together. I mean, you could pay $5-10 for this magazine and go, this is just a regular magazine. But Inspire is what Al Qaeda uses for propaganda and for pushing their plans out. The original plan, and Inspire published this. They showed a little picture of the invisible bomb, and it was like a mock-up of the model. The plan was that Al-Shabaab in Africa was going to actually test the bomb, the invisible bomb. But because Sarah came out on Sean Ryan's show and talked about it, they had to cancel the plan. This is the beauty of this is what we call, like me, Sarah, Jane Doe, Shay, and all of us, we talk about this. We call this disruptive intelligence. There's regular intelligence that you gather and you keep under the table and you pass it around your intelligence agencies. There is disruptive intelligence that you use that you put out to derail someone's plans. And I'll give you an example of something we've done here at Command 11. There was a TTP commander, Taliban Pakistan commander, that was in hiding. We put out a video basically painting him as an intelligence operative, that he was working for Pakistan's intelligence. It forced him to come out and make a video. And he did it outdoors, and we were able to geolocate the location where he made that video and figure out exactly where he was. Didn't live much longer after that because the Pakistani military took him out. But that's what's called disruptive intelligence. And it's something that the CIA does not use, MI6 does not use. They're not adept in that level of the game. But disruptive intelligence is something private intelligence companies use to lure somebody out. And once you lure them out, you've got them. You can nail them wherever they are, because they come outside and they shoot it so you can see where they are. You can see the mountains. You can see the sun position. You know exactly where they are. Once you know where they are, they don't live much longer.
Yeah, that's awesome, Khalid. Next one up here, after Donald Trump's demand and threat to the Taliban for the return of Bagram Air Base to the U.S., Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi has replied, even if the U.S. were to recognize the Taliban and pledge to rebuild all of Afghanistan, we would never surrender a single inch of our country for their military presence. Take that.
Well, here's the interesting part. They actually followed up with this. They quoted the Doha Accords, saying that the U.S. has pledged that they will not invade Afghanistan again as long as we follow the Doha Accords. Number one, you have violated the Doha Accords because you are the University of Terrorism now, which was a violation of the Doha Accords. And now you're taunting and flaunting that to the U.S. But there's a cute little backstory to Bagram Air Base. The Biden administration left Bagram, which was absolute stupidity. When Donald Trump first brought up the fact that he wanted Bagram Air Base back, the Taliban said $1 billion. Give us $1 billion and we will give you Bagram. Trump turned around and said, no, not $1 billion. I'll give you $300 million. I want you to think about this for a second. You're negotiating with terrorists. We will give you $300 million and you can have Bagram back. And the Taliban turned around and said, no, $1 billion or you can't have it at all. That's when Trump made the statement saying, we will get it back no matter what. Now, here's where my problem is. Donald Trump is saying that we will invade Afghanistan with 10,000 troops. 10,000 troops is not even a tenth of what the Taliban's army is. Think about that for a second. You've got the Taliban, you've got Islamic State, you've got Al-Qaeda, you've got HTS, you've got IMU, the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan. There are roughly 700,000, 800,000 armed military-aged men who are trained and ready to fight. And Donald Trump thinks he's going to take Bagram back with 10,000 soldiers. It's a pipe dream, and he really needs to give up on Bagram, because if he wants to go after Bagram, he's got to be thinking carpet bomb Afghanistan. There's no other way to do it.
So let me bring the next one up here. This is enough to make your blood boil here, right? So Al-Qaeda leaders Abu Muhammad al-Jolani and Assad al-Shabani blocks away from ground zero. This should be the greatest moment of shame for every politician in Washington, D.C. and every general sitting in the Pentagon. Jolani, who's the president of Syria now, was a leader inside of Al-Qaeda. He splintered off the first piece of ISIS, first group known as ISIS. They trimmed his beard up, took him out of the dress and put him in a three-piece suit. Now they're telling us that, we should, welcome we should be working with this piece of shit. And
These
now
two-
he's here. He's in New York City right this minute.
These two are the two co-founders of Al Qaeda in Syria. Put that picture back up, Chris. I want everybody to recognize these two. These two are the co-founders of Al Qaeda in Syria. Recognize that one is the president, one is the foreign minister. The guy who's the foreign minister just 3 days ago was taken on a tour of the Pentagon. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You walked Al Qaeda around inside the Pentagon?
Jolani and General Petraeus sat down together. They fought against each other on the battlefield. This is insanity. Like, unbelievable. What a slap in the face to all the people who died on 9. Say again.
Did you hear Petraeus? Did you hear Petraeus? Yeah. Mr. President, I'd like to know, this is a personal question. Are you getting enough sleep? And I'm going, are you fawning over him like a little schoolgirl?
It's unbelievable. This is betrayal of the highest magnitude. Can you imagine all the people who lost family members on 9/11 1.0, and now these shitbags are not only in our country, but we're rolling out the red carpet for them? It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Next one up, John Rosamondo is one of the most knowledgeable individuals on the Muslim Brotherhood. Notice how he points out that MBUS lobbyists worked for over a decade to get the U.S. to support Jolani taking power in Syria. Muslim Brotherhood supported an al-Qaeda ISIS commander to take over Syria. So right here, John Rosamondo, nothing has changed. The same band of jihadis that fought alongside Jabhat al-Nusra had their U.S. Muslim Brotherhood activists actively lobby to get the U.S. to support Jolani over a decade ago. I mean, you can't.
Let me add a couple of things. I don't know if you got the picture that I sent you, Chris. Muslim Brotherhood passed a directive in their own organization telling men and women that you should marry influential, high-up people in the British government, in the U.S. government, and then the key operative, the key lobbyist for the Muslim Brotherhood, get this, married the State Department's key Syrian advisor, this woman here. Khaldud is her name, Khaldud. She is the former Prime Minister of Egypt's niece, and she's married to the top lobbyist in the U.S. for Muslim Brotherhood. Think about that for a second. Your State Department has been penetrated by the Muslim Brotherhood. Tell me how you're going to ban the Muslim Brotherhood now.
Yeah, it's all just a slap in the face, right? I mean, I don't know how else you can describe it.
I mean, you wonder why things don't happen the way they should happen. And this is why, because the terrorists have worked out strategies on how to penetrate different layers of government. And when they penetrate, they set themselves in such a place that you cannot do anything then.
Yeah, well, here's the next one up. Why can't we have democracy in the Middle East? Just take a look at these sycophants for your answer. They're worse than ISIS. Bashar is gone, yet they can't wait to prostrate themselves before the next strongman. What a vile people. They fled their country at the first shot fired, yet here they are from the safety of the West advocating for dictatorship. Their children grew up with modern education in countries governed by laws, while they wish for those left behind only dictatorship, Sharia, sectarian massacres, and Arab nationalism taken to its genocidal conclusion. And I'm sure they'll cry for minority rights in the U.S., rights that they would fiercely deny back home in the country they abandoned. Frankly, I have more respect for ISIS than these rats. 1 minute and 2 seconds.
والله مثلك ما جابت النساء ولا قمطت دايم والله ديد اخبار الله حياك احلى ابو محمد بالعالم.
I can't watch any more of that, Khalid.
These are all Syrians. These are all Syrians living in New York City and celebrating Jolani. I mean, just think about that for a second. They were pissed off with Bashar al-Assad because of all the torture and all the people he put in jail. And now you have someone who is 10 times worse, and you're celebrating them. If you're so proud of him, cancel your American passports, go back to Syria. Kristi Noem, I think it was Thursday of last week, signed an order saying anyone who from Syria who's here on temporary residency must return to Syria. Smack in the face for all of these guys. Go back to your country.
Amen to that. It's just mind-boggling. So, Khalid, let's pivot a little bit here to Charlie Kirk's murder. By the way, let me show you something here quickly before we carry on. I got some stuff from Turning Point USA in the mail today because we've given them money in the past. They sent another request for money, but this was everything I received today was printed and sent before Charlie was murdered. And there's a letter that came with it from Charlie Kirk. I'm sure somebody else helped prepare it for him and stuff, but it was all written before his death. It was kind of weird opening it up, to be honest with you, and going, wow, this is, when this was written and when this was sent out, he was still alive. But I want to touch on something here that there's a fair bit of, I don't know what you want to call it, disbelief, conspiracy theories, whatever you want. 30-06 is not going to be stopped by a vertebrae in your neck, especially at 142 yards. And JJ Morris was on with us yesterday and said, absolutely, it's not going to frickin' happen. And one of Charlie Kirk's team members said they spoke to the ME, and the ME had said, yes, I pulled this bullet out of his neck. And Charlie Kirk was continuing to save people because this 30-06 round was stopped by his neck vertebrae. Your thoracic vertebrae are significantly larger than those in your neck, and it wouldn't stand a chance. Anybody who shot 30-06 would know. I'm sitting beside an old Bushmaster 30-06 over here that'll literally take your arm off. It's an ignorant gun to shoot. Well, I don't know if you caught this or not today, Khalid, but now that person's backpedaling and saying, no. We took the bullet out of the back of his neck before we loaded him in the SUV.
Yeah, I heard that story. I heard that one. Yep.
It's complete and utter bullshit. So this guy showing on screen here is a guy who goes by the name of Hootie Who. He's got a gun tuber channel. He's in Tennessee. He's a good old boy from the South. Really good guy, decent guy. Watch what happens when you hit cinder blocks with a 30-06. And then you tell me that you think soft flesh and small bones in your vertebrae stop a 30-06? No way. 1 minute, 7 seconds.
All right. First shot, Ruger American 30-06, Winchester Super X 180 grain round. Let's take a shot at these cinder blocks. Ooh, look at all that smoke coming out of there. That's pretty cool. Let's take a look and see what the 30-06 did. Walking up to it, you can see where we hit right there. And it split the first wall, split the second wall, and the back wall, it kind of disconnected and punched. But it doesn't look like it hit the next cinder block there. So it went 30-06, went through 1, 2, and then broke the back wall. So
there's additional footage from that video with different calibers. For example, 338 Lapua, 13,500 foot-pounds of energy, which is over 4 times what a 30-06 has, and it went through 4 cinder blocks. But suffice it to say, somebody in the audience said, neck vertebrae is not stopping a 30-06, and that's absolutely true. Shame on the people who are pushing that. So here's the next part to it, Khalid. I don't remember if I sent you this or not. I filed a formal request for Charlie's autopsy. So this was submitted early this morning. There's a statute in Ohio says that the sheriff has 10 days to get it to you. I'm sure it'll be heavily redacted when we do get it. And I'm not expecting it to be, incredibly truthful, but that's the request. It's on the way. And of course, as soon as we get it, we'll be sharing it with y'all out there. Something else I want to share. Any guesses at who that little fella is beside Ozzy Osbourne there? Can anybody guess in the live chat who the little fellow is beside Ozzy Osbourne? Let me give you a hint. Can you guess who this guy is? So the first picture I just showed you, of course, was Jack Osbourne when he was a youngin', and Ozzy was into guns and got his families into survival and guns. This picture was taken this past weekend at a survival getaway in northern Idaho, where Jack has property there. And there were quite a few attendees. And he had Mike Glover come and teach survival skills to the attendees. And that picture, by the way, 100% approved by Jack Osbourne to share on social media. Jack Osbourne said, "This is a badass survival product." So congratulations to our friends at Carnivalt, carnivalt.com. Use the code EATMEAT, all one word, get 10% off freeze-dried meat, 100% American, 25-year shelf life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's pretty cool. All right, Khalid. So let's get into the first portions. Let's call it segment number 1 of tonight's episode. And I'll just give the high-level overview, and then you can take it away from there. Let me just get down to my notes here. All right. So for those people who are just joining us for the first time, Khalid has laid this out multiple times. So I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version. This is episode number 29 of 144, by the way, in the Long War series. And essentially the intelligence shows that Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the Islamic Army, which encompasses all these terrorist groups who hate our guts, are very, very close to launching 9/11 2.0. So what's 9/11 2.0? 10 to 15 tier 2 cities, population 100,000 to 500,000, being attacked simultaneously by small cells of 2, 3, 4, 5 ISIS guys, but multiple cells. So in other words, not one little ISIS cell in one city. It's half a dozen, maybe 10 cells in each of the 10 to 15 cities. They start attacking soft targets, then they lie in wait. And they wait until the first responders show up, and then they launch VBIEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, and kill a whole bunch of first responders. And then they carry on. They hit more and more soft targets, culminating with them taking the one and only Tier 1 trauma center in those Tier 2 cities. And they use those as a base, essentially, to broadcast horrendous videos of decapitating Americans, killing Americans, torturing Americans, until we get the hospitals back. There's only 2 ways to do it. You either bomb the building, which no American official would ever give permission to do, or you storm it with commandos. The problem with that is that there's solid intel that they're going to use sarin in some of these attacks, whether they're schools or hospitals, in canisters that are timed to go off. So if you get exposed to sarin, you don't even have to breathe it in. If it drops on your skin, as we've heard directly from J.J. Morris and others, Mike Sterling recently as well, you got 3 minutes till you're dead. It attacks your central nervous system. Your brain tells your right hand to do this, and your left foot moves. And 3 minutes later, your heart, your lungs, your brain, everything just stop working. So the only way to retrieve those hospitals is to storm them with commandos. The problem with that, we don't have enough. So the FBI has 4 HRT teams, hostage rescue teams. We have multiple guys in Delta teams, but we don't have enough of them to rescue 10 or 15 cities and 10 or 15 Tier 1 trauma centers. It also becomes a triage situation. So now that stage is set, let's talk about the. So check that out, Khalid. It's my watch. Yeah, can you hear it? That's how much this stuff pisses me off. Every time I get on this topic, my watch goes crazy, and I forgot to hit mute on it tonight. So anyway, getting back on track here. So these 9/11 2.0 attacks, complex coordinated attacks, same thing, Mumbai 2008, Paris 2015. Khalid has covered all sorts of other areas that have been hit by these CCTAs, complex coordinated terrorist attacks. But the hospitals are very soft targets. Khalid and I now have spoke to a ton of people in the hospital space. Thank God. Some of them are taking it seriously. We spoke to some people Pacific Northwest today, and they are absolutely taking this seriously. And it just so happens where we got that call from is on Khalid's list of potential targets. So at the end of the day, after they take the hospitals, after the word goes out of what they've done, then they start attacking our infrastructure. So power grid, communications, et cetera, just amps the fear up to a whole new level. And when those networks go down, all of your EMR, all your electronic medical records are gone, or at least not usable because there's no power for them. You've got a limited amount of electricity for these hospitals. So many of them have natural gas backup generators. The problem is when the grid goes down, that the gas company can't maintain a high enough pressure to feed the natural gas to run your generators to keep your hospital up. I know this coming from high tech because all the small data centers that were impacted in the Northeast when that substation in Long Island caught fire 20 some odd years ago, I knew a bunch of people they were respectable sized businesses, but small data centers, they all went down because the gas pressure went down. So then let's say you've got propane. Well, you only have so much propane, right? You have a finite amount in your tanks, and it's ungodly expensive to run large power generations off of protein. So with that being said, Khalid, if you could speak to which parts of hospital infrastructure are most at risk from deliberate attacks, like walk us through what an attack looks like on a hospital based on your knowledge of what you've seen in other locations. Take it away.
Okay. The hospital attacks, this is the culmination of the attack. When you have the 10 teams moving throughout the city, you'll have teams of 5, 6, 7 people. They'll leave one guy behind at each of the places they attack. So if they get a school, if they get a shopping mall, if they get an office complex, they'll leave one guy behind for the first responders who will detonate himself when the first responders show up. By the time you get to the hospital, you've got maybe 20, 30 attackers inside the hospital, which is more than was at Mumbai. Mumbai, when the hotel was taken, you were talking about 6, 7 terrorists inside of the Mumbai, inside the Taj Hotel in Mumbai. And it took 3 days to take control of the hotel back. That was clearing room by room with Indian commandos dropped in from the top. When you talk about what's going on, what's going to happen in the US, this is not one city. This is 10, 15 cities from the Midwest, Northeast, the Southwest, the West Coast. This is going to be spread out everywhere. The first attack will hit on your police forces, on your law enforcement, so they're out of the game from the very beginning. Then the terrorists they've gone out and they've bought vehicles at auctions. They've bought vehicles and dialed them up to look like ambulance and police cars that they will use as first responder vehicles. Those are all loaded up with explosives. They're just waiting for you to come close by. Once you come close by, boom, they blow it up and everybody around you is gone. When they get to the hospital, it's a siege situation. They are going to siege the hospital. That means they will have full control. Full control meaning what? The doors will all be sealed. There'll be explosives on the doors. When the first 2 ambulances arrive that have explosives in them, they will detonate at the hospital and bring the front foundation down, which means you can't get into the hospital. Understand that. You can't get into the hospital. What goes on inside the hospital after that? They will go room to room, all patients, all doctors, all nurses, shot, tortured, body parts cut off, and live stream. Just like we're live streaming right now, they will be live streaming this to the entire world so that they can use it for propaganda.
Quick question for you, Khalid.
Yeah.
Are there any cities that you know of in America, whether they're tier 2 or not, that have teams prepared for this type of complex coordinated terror attack?
By teams, what do you mean? By police forces?
Yeah, the first responders, period.
No, nobody's ready for this. I mean, the threat assessment that the National Counterterrorism Center put out was the first notification that went out to law enforcement and to first responders. think of it this way. We are expecting these attacks to happen from the end of November to the end of February, anytime in between. And I'm betting money sometime in the month of December, because that's when Christmas shopping is going on. That's when you have target-rich environments. So that's when these guys are going to hit. The roads are going to be packed. The shopping malls are going to be packed.
So Khalid, just work with me here. So let's say we take a tier 2 city like Buffalo, which is on the list.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you've got the first soft targets hit. You've got a bunch of first responders killed in addition to civilians. Yep. Eventually the attackers, the ISIS component, makes it to the tier 1 trauma center, which, by the way, it's not germane to tonight's conversation, but once ISIS gets rolling with this, Al-Qaeda goes and attacks the local airport. Yep. And hijacks 2 or 3 jets on the ground because it's too hard to do it in the air now. And then you could look up Osama bin Laden's Bojinka plan, where basically the planes take off and then they blow the planes up over top of American cities. And you've got all kinds of things like body parts raining down on you, etc., just to take the terror to a higher level. But here's my question, Khalid. And for those of you not aware of this, again, if you're just joining us, you just found Survival Dispatch News and Command 11. Khalid grew up here in Michigan. And yep. He's been back in Pakistan for a short period of time. He'll be back here in America soon. So when he speaks of America, it's not like he's speaking from somebody who's not familiar with our country. He grew up here. What happens to treatment options for all those people who are injured when the tier 1 trauma center in Buffalo disappears?
They're gone. You're stuck with clinics. And you are stuck with basic triage that you can do so you can get them to another hospital close by. And a close by hospital could be a hour drive from where you are. And that's assuming you have vehicles to take them. Because again, you've got to look at it from the point of view that they're going to take out your ambulances. They're going to take out your EMTs. What do you have available to move anyone who's injured?
So I'm just thinking back to driving through that area. I mean, I've traveled the country extensively for work and otherwise. I didn't look this up, but I would hazard to guess that the closest tier 1 trauma center to Buffalo, you'd have to get all the way to Rochester. And Rochester is a fur piece down the interstate, the New York State Thruway. And you don't have enough helicopters to take these people, like to medevac them or anything like that. So you're looking at not just the people initially killed. There's going to be casualties who just are not able to secure the attention that they need soon enough. So last question on the first segment, Khalid, is what role you since you mentioned ambulances, what role does EMS and ambulance systems play, and how can we expect them to be disrupted as well?
Well, look, your EMS is your 911 system, your 911 system will be taken down completely. They will, if you paid attention to all of these university shooters, these school shooters, if you go back and watch a couple episodes back, we talked about in significant detail that there are bad actors that for $10 a call, they will flood your 911 system, which means 911 comes down. You will not be able to get an emergency call out. Once your emergency system is gone, then how does anyone get notified as to, what's happened? You've got people driving around looking for where the explosions were and where the gunfire is coming from. You've got a huge issue that's going to develop. Second problem, you will have ambulances that are being targeted. They will not be the great emergency management system you have, the great EMTs that you have will be taken out on the way. Once they're taken out, it's game over. And we talked about this, I think it was on the Thursday episode about triage. You're going to have the problem of having to make very tough decisions. That who do you let live? Who do you let die? Because you're not going to be able to treat everyone. It's just not going to be possible because you won't have EMTs. So if you have medical training, you'll be able to save those people that have a little bit of shrapnel in them, a little bit of blood coming out of them. That's as far as you'll be able to go. Anyone who's been hit by an explosive or been hit by a bullet, you have to triage them black and say, I'm sorry, there's no way we can save you. And this is where when you look at their plan, this is where the casualty count goes exponentially high. Because one is the gunfire where they'll shoot at a bunch of people. Two is the explosions where they will blow people up, and that shrapnel, when it hits you, will cause damage. That will put people in that situation, whether you are a first responder, whether you have any kind of training with medical care, whether you know first aid, whether you've taken stop the bleed training. It will put you in a position where you've got to make that decision. Do I treat this person or do I let them go? And that is the hardest decision you're going to have to make, because for a normal person, if you've never seen anyone get hit with a suicide bomb, or you've never seen anyone die, it's the hardest thing you have to decide, because that's the decision's in your hands. If you can save somebody, if it's going to take you 5 minutes to save this person and 1 minute to save this person, you're going to focus on the person that's going to take 1 minute. That's basically triage. And the EMS system, when EMS and EMTs go down, it is people helping people. This is why we keep saying no one is coming to save you. As much training as you get, as much situational awareness as you have, the more successful you're going to be as getting off of that X.
So I want to remind people in the live chats that there are a lot of AI bots in live chats these days that are programmed to sow discord. There are also people who are paid to be active in live chats. And here's a bullshit lie here that's easily disproven. Dearborn is mainly Muslims, one of the safest cities in Michigan, and has some of the best options for food in the state. Really? Seriously, really? Dearborn has a crime rate higher than 89% of cities and towns of all sizes in the state of Michigan.
Yep.
So bot, paid bad actor, whatever, but that's bullshit. That's disinformation, misinformation, whatever you want to call it. And, I would say don't be an asshole, but who knows? It could be AI. If it keeps acting up, we'll just boot it from the live chat. But you got to be careful to recognize there's a lot of subterfuge going on these days. And see John Curry here. Dearborn is a nightmare. Listen,
it is. I grew up in the state of Michigan. I know how bad Dearborn is.
Listen to this. So when I was working for Sun, we did some work for Ford. So I was going to be on the Ford campus in Dearborn. Yep. And so I had a rental car from the airport. I had one of the old GPSs. This was probably like 22 years ago or so. And that GPS would not take me to the Ritz-Carlton, which is right across the interstate from the Ford campus. So I end up in this shopping mall, and it's like a Publix is here, where the traffic goes one way, one lane, and then the other way, the other lane, right? And I noticed as I'm driving through there's a cop car in every single, row in it. So I pull up this cop. I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Could you tell me where the Ritz-Carlton is?" I said, "This GPS would drive me off a cliff if I let it." And then he said, "Yeah, you follow me, son." So he leads me to the Ritz-Carlton, and he pulls up to me and he says, "How long are you here for?" I said, "Well, I'm here for the week. I'm working over there at the Ford campus." And he said, "Listen, don't go over." It was 1 mile away, by the way. He said, "Don't go over there. White people don't go in over there. Did you not see all of our cars over there? It's a crime infested cesspool." That's over 20 years ago. I can only imagine what it's like today. So anyway, we'll move on from there. I just want people to be aware that there's a lot of disinformation out there. So I do want to show an article here, and I'll throw it out in the live chat in just a second, issues in the U.S. hospital supply chain system. These issues are critical to healthcare delivery, April 29, 2025. So this is pretty recent stuff. These challenges disrupt patient care, increase costs, strain hospital operations. Addressing the issues in the U.S. hospital supply chain system requires understanding their root causes. This article explores key problems, including shortages, inefficiencies, and vulnerabilities. It also examines potential solutions to strengthen the system. So the point I'm making there is that the supply chain for medical stuff is already in bad shape. Yeah. So follow me here for those of you who are new to SDN, okay? So 10 to 15 cities attacked simultaneously. Multiple soft targets hit in each of those cities simultaneously, including schools, and including things like terrorists showing up at your kids' schools in a van that says they're an HVAC company, putting a ladder up against the school, going on the roof, opening up the HVAC system, putting sarin canisters in that are on a timer, getting off the roof. And then when the siren goes off, maybe some people recognize that, hey, something's not right. It doesn't smell right. And they try to leave. And the bad guys are waiting at all the exits just to mow people down by gunfire. Who's sending their kids to school the day after that across the entire country? Nobody. Okay. So nobody's sending their kids to school. Bunch of people aren't going to be going to work. That's for sure. Especially when the grid goes down and communication networks go down. So by the third day, what happens to the supply chain for everything, including food? Your grocery store on average has 3 days worth of products. When a product drops to a certain number, the 3PL, 4 or 5PL system, third-party logistics, says to the distribution center, here's a PO, send me X amount of boxes of whatever this particular food is. And it looks after everything. The bill of lading for logistics companies, so on and so forth. Well, when the network's down, there's no backup to that. There's no pen and paper and phoning somebody up and saying, please send these supplies. So we're never more than 3 missed meals away from anarchy. And when the food goes away, look at what people do on Black Friday. I don't know how many times I've said this in the past 3 years, but they'll beat the shit out of each other for a TV. What are they going to do when they have no food? It's a whole higher level of problems. So these are cascading problems, and cascading would be the key word. So Khalid, I want to get a couple questions in with you here. What medical supplies in particular do you think would run out first in this type of attack?
Bandages. First thing that's going to run out is bandages. Stop the bleed kits, gauze pads, alcohol, surgical instruments. You are looking at a complete collapse of your medical system. No matter what the hospital is, no matter what the clinic is, even if you're not a tier 1 trauma center, the fact that you will not be able to get anything, and I do mean anything, because once these attacks happen, even your suppliers are not going to put their trucks on the road because they're going to be afraid that this truck is going to get stopped someplace. It's going to be attacked. It's not going to get to where it needs to get to. And how do you get supplies anywhere? That fear, once it spreads across the U.S., you're done. I mean, forget food, medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, basic stuff. It's all gone. I mean, this is why we're talking about it now, saying build up your stock now, because when it happens, everything's gone.
What about the products we don't even make in America? Like antibiotics, for example, all of that comes from basically your neck of the woods, China, etc.
You won't be able to. I think every hospital has maybe a week's worth of antibiotics, but that's a normal running hospital. That's not talking mass casualties. Once you get mass casualties running, that week turns into 3 days.
So you're intimately familiar with the hospitals. I'm not so much. I mean, I'm 32 surgeries under general anesthesia, so I've been put out with my familiarity with hospitals. I'm curious, what are the biggest challenges that hospitals face as far as stockpiling this stuff? Do they even have areas to stockpile this on average?
They have the areas, but again, most of the hospitals we're talking to right now are telling us the same thing. The administration is not listening. When we talk to the hospitals, they're all saying, well, our administration is not listening, that this can actually happen. And when you're not listening, this is not a 1 week delivery time where you can get a month's worth of antibiotics delivered, a month's worth of bandages delivered. Because again, think of it from the point of view, a basic hospital running, they will have a week's worth of supplies. But when you get mass casualties and you have terrorists inside the hospital that are not letting anyone in the hospital, even if you're fully stocked up, who's going to treat anyone?
A good question. And that leads to the next article I want to pull up here. So Khalid's group, Khalid was the one who was ahead of the pack on this, not Laura Loomer, just to reiterate that. But check this out, Khalid, and I know you've read this. This is from October 12th, 2021. Terrorist attacks against healthcare facilities, a review. The abstract states, healthcare facilities play an essential role in response to terrorist attacks, but they can also be soft targets due to their accessibility and limited security. In this review, the authors used the Global Terrorism Database to conduct a search on terrorist attacks directed against hospitals and healthcare facilities between 1970 and 2018. Search terms included healthcare, doctor, nurses, vaccinators, clinic, and hospital, which resulted in 2,322 healthcare-related entries. The data set was then manually searched for attacks on healthcare facilities, resulting in a total of 901 attacks in 74 different countries. The prevalence of healthcare facility attacks has increased, with 57%, 515, occurring after 2001. The most common method of attack was bombing, followed by direct attacks on healthcare infrastructure and armed assaults. Healthcare facilities remain vulnerable to violence, and lessons learned in the aftermath of these incidents can be used to raise awareness about important safety-related concerns. So I've got one quick comment, and then I want to hear your thoughts here, Khalid. There's a hospital not too far from us. We know a bunch of people who work there. There are 158 entrances to this hospital. And you ready for this? They have 5 security guards, okay? 5 security guards.
Yep.
I know you know this because I mentioned it before. 5 security guards. Not one of them weighs a pound under 300 pounds, okay?
Yep.
And these are not, they don't look like, a professional wrestler like Hulk Hogan. These are, if you're going to say they're in shape, if you think round is a shape, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
One of them has a sidearm. One. The other 4, get my fingers right here. The other 4 have less lethal options. I think 2 of them have tasers, and they all have, things like pepper spray, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
That's no match for
an AR.
Racist sleeper cell coming in with grenades, IEDs, fully automatic machine guns, tons of ammo. And maybe speak to that a little bit, Khalid, of how underprepared hospitals are from a security standpoint. And again, we can go back even before 2021. There's a lot of people who've been sounding alarm saying, holy shit, our hospitals are really soft targets. But I'll let you roll with just how vulnerable they really are from a security perspective.
I'll give you worse. I have sent my own people into county clerk offices, city clerk offices, and asked how many maps, blueprints of hospitals, office complexes, school buildings have been taken out in the last year. There, in all the cities that are listed in our threat assessment, there's not one city that has not had blueprints for all of the above taken out from a county clerk or a city clerk's office. Wow. They have literally mapped everything out. That's number 1. Number 2, if you read our threat assessment, we have identified that electricians, plumbers, construction workers, these are very key people to watch, because they intimately know what they have done inside that hospital and what they've been able to set up in that hospital. It is completely possible that you have had recent work done on your HVAC system. Inside that HVAC system, you have had a military-age Muslim male from Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Somalia come and do that work. Inside your HVAC system, there may be a device already set up. And we have detailed this inside of our threat assessment, that anybody who's had this work done at a hospital, a school, a shopping mall, please go and have it checked by someone you trust to make sure that there's nothing inside your systems. There's nothing connected to your electricity. There's nothing connected to your HVAC that can be used remotely down the line. Because look, remember, this is a planning stage. They have done recon. They have done surveillance. They have done threat runs. They have done swatting calls. They have figured every single thing out. The interesting part for us is and I've spoken to a lot of hospitals since we put this threat assessment out. Every hospital tells me the same thing. Well, we've got key cards, but we don't know how many doors have key card entry on them. Like if you're coming up from the basement, there's no key card entry. There's no security guard there. That means that's a clear entry point. Someone can come in and they come right to the basement and right up into the hospital, and you cannot stop them. And most of your security guards inside of the hospital are not armed. And when you are facing somebody who's got an AR, an M4, you're not going to get a taser's not going to work. And these guys are going to be juiced up on every pill, every performance enhancing medication that our soldiers use on the battlefield. So even if you hit them with a taser, you're not going to knock them down.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you would say that. So, because I want to just speak to a friend of ours, Jeff Nicholas from Compliant Technologies, and how he's overcome exactly what you just mentioned. So if you go to complianttechnologies.net, you'll see they've got this product called the glove. And the glove, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, some generated low voltage, something. But anyway, have you ever had a TENS unit on, Khalid, you know, where it pumps electricity into your muscles and you know, contracts them and stuff?
Yep.
So imagine somebody put your body, connected it to a TENS unit and turned it up to a setting of 1 gazillion. Your whole body would just go like this and lock up, right? So he's got this product called the glove. You can access everything on your belt. You can shoot with it. But when you touch bare skin with it, it puts 380 volts through the peripheral nervous system and acts like a TENS unit. It can't disrupt hearts, can't disrupt pacemakers. It's been used over 100,000 times by law enforcement agencies. 0 injuries to perps, 0 injuries to cops, 0 lawsuits. Our local SOP here for the sheriff's department, deputy shoots you with a taser, he takes it out. We had somebody get infected, $2 million lawsuit, poof, just like that, right? The gloves don't do any of that stuff. So when somebody's all jacked up on whatever drugs, if you grab them with these gloves, they physically can't overcome it. I've got video of my friend Dave Kemp, who's a SWAT team, 25-year SWAT team guy in Carbondale, Illinois, at a taser event where they shot him with the taser and they had mock-up guns, and he was able to get off half a dozen shots. He fought through. He was pissed off. It was awesome, and got them off. So a taser is not going to affect everybody. It's not going to take everybody out. We all know that. But the gloves, when somebody lays their hands on you, you could have a 120-pound woman take down a 320-pound man. The reason I say that is because it's happened with the gloves. It's typically 1 second from it's on to it's over. That's it. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So I want to just show one quick article and get your comments. Actually, 2 quick articles, because I'm only going to read the headline on this one. Hospitals as disaster victims, lessons not learned. That article goes through and names all these different instances of attacks on hospitals that nothing's been learned. And then this one here basically says, we have seen an increase in violent actions and threats against healthcare workers in healthcare settings. Federal data shows that healthcare workers are 5 times more likely to experience workforce violence than workers overall. It's a dangerous environment for them to be in the first place, right? And now you've got terrorists taking it over. So I've got one last question on this section. Does anybody have any SOPs and policies that stand a chance against what's coming for the hospital attacks?
We have actually written SOPs for different hospitals because they didn't know what to be ready for. And they said, look, can you write us an SOP? And we said, sure, we can write you an SOP, but you've got to be willing to hire the resources that you need to do this, because we're going to write you an SOP based on, a threat center. Because for us, a hospital is not a healthcare center. That is a threat center. It's a soft target that is going to be targeted. That means you need to have armed response. That means you need to have gloves, tasers. And the biggest problem is key cards. You have doctors that have key cards. Guess who's going to get shot first? The guy that has the key card. And when we said that to a hospital administrator up in the Northeast, the guy literally went dead silent. I said, hello, are you still there? He's like, I just realized what you just said to me. I said, yeah, you think those key cards are going to matter? They're going to be looking for people who have key cards.
Well, Khalid, I think it was last month we had somebody in the chat say, oh, they won't be able to do this. All the doors have key cards on them. We're like, you do realize they will kill the people with the key cards to get from one area to the next. I mean, Meg Stewart's asking the name of the gloves again. So it's complianttechnologies.net. I'll put a link in the chat in just a second. Anyway, Khalid, let's move on to the third segment for tonight. And could you define the difference between level 1 and level 2 trauma centers, and then explain why those level 1 are such prime targets in the attacks, the intelligence that you have.
A level 1 trauma center is a full range trauma center. They can treat any type of medical emergency, any type of medical emergency. A level 2 trauma center can only do operations to a certain point. Life-saving is a level they can go to, but only to a certain point. Then they have to transfer you to a level 1 trauma center. The reason they're targeting the level 1 trauma center is because when you take that off the table, when you take that main trauma center off the table, you have literally crippled that town. There is no one that can handle life-saving operations there. There is no one that can handle a bio attack. There is no one that can handle a chemical attack. And we know from the intelligence we've looked, we've heard from, and again, our intelligence is coming directly from the terror camps in Afghanistan. That's where our information is coming from. We have human assets inside of those camps. So we are hearing it directly from the terrorist mouth, what they're planning, how they're planning, how they're going to do it. We know that Al-Qaeda's 2 main chemical weapon engineers have disappeared off the grid. Wow. Nobody knows where they are. And these are people, one is considered the CEO of anthrax, that he has created so many variations of anthrax that there is no treatment for certain types of anthrax that he's created, that if it just hits you, if you just inhale a little bit of it, you're done. It's game over. It's finished.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit, even though Jeff MD is not here, our former CIA operative. He said that the Russians years ago took anthrax, threw one antibiotic at it, and you end up with 3 or 4% of the spores survive. They took those to the next petri dish, cultured it, let it grow. They hit it with another antibiotic. Took a long time, but they eventually got to a strain of anthrax that no antibiotic can fix. But here's the other part to it. Even if you realize it's anthrax, the problem with anthrax is as soon as you show the first side effect of anthrax exposure, you're dead.
You're dead.
There's no turning back.
Well,
even if there was an antibiotic that would work against it, it's too late at that point.
No, the part that scares us, Chris, is that about 3 months ago in Germany, 2 16-year-olds, now hear me out, 2 16-year-olds created chemical weapons in their basement based on the recipes they'd gotten from the internet. And when the law enforcement raided the house, they found so many variations of chemical weapons being created in that basement that they didn't, I mean, military grade ricin, military grade sarin that was being created in that basement based on the recipes that ISIS and Al-Qaeda had put out in their propaganda. And that's how they done it.
I have a bunch of questions for you on this particular segment that we're covering here. And again, if you just joined us, we're talking about the emergency and trauma care centers being targeted and taken down. So Pakistan is kind of like the kitchen where the terrorists come up with a recipe and they try it out in Pakistan. So they attack you guys in Pakistan, then Europe, and then over here in America. What's the psychological impact on doctors and nurses when this stuff happens, even if it's not their hospital? They heard it's going on in another hospital. And what does that do to the level of care for their patients?
Pakistan itself does not have a Second Amendment. We don't have a law that says you cannot carry a weapon inside of a hospital. When an attack happens, the number of doctors that are carrying weapons as a sidearm inside of operating rooms, inside of the hospitals as they move around the hospital, just because someone attacked. And that's all they hear. We've had courtrooms attacked. We have had police stations attacked. We have had hospitals attacked. We have had shopping centers attacked. The fear that goes through society, it's just unbelievable because nobody wants. We had a hospital shut down for an entire week because no doctor wanted to go to work. They said, no, we're not safe. We're not going to work. Forget it. Either give us military guards on the doors at the hospital, and we're talking maybe 10, 15 doors. Not like in the U.S. hospital where there's hundreds of doors.
Well, that leads me to my next question, and I'm just asking you to speculate. I don't expect you to have a hard answer, but how long do you think it would take the National Guard to set up mobile trauma centers in somewhere like Buffalo or the Buffalo area to triage and treat people. Days.
You're talking at least 48 hours, just to mobilize.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Once you mobilize, figure another 24 hours to get set up. And then, I mean, you're talking 72 hours is just gone. And in 72 hours, you're going to lose people. People are going to die in 72 hours.
So that leads me to my next question. And I don't know if they have these in National Guard mobile hospitals or not, but what happens when all the imaging services are down?
You've got nothing then. You've got nothing. When X-ray is down, ultrasound is down, how do you figure out where a bone is broken? How do you figure out where a bullet is lodged?
We have MRI.
I mean, you just have to study and figuring it out. I mean, it's like what we do on the battlefield. When one of our guys gets hit with a bullet, we're literally feeling their arm going, okay, where do we feel the bullet? Where do we feel the bullet? And we're cutting different places trying to find the bullet so we can pull it out.
So mobile hospitals, trauma centers definitely have access to x-rays. There's lots of mobility there that they can pull in. There are a couple companies that I've crossed paths with in the past when I was in the tech industry that had mobile MRI machines, but my understanding is that they are few and far between.
Yeah.
So if even if it took 48 hours to set up a mobile hospital trauma center, it's still likely there's not going to be any advanced imaging, no CAT scans, no MRIs, just basic stuff. Yeah, you'll
have surgery. You'll have triage. That's all you can set up in a mobile center.
Well, it's not hard to see why it's a soft target that they're very interested in going after, for sure.
Someone put in a comment. Arthur's got a comment in there that says, "What about Navy Mercy hospital ships?" Great. If it's along the coastline, then your ships will work. But even your Navy, to move your military, you are talking 48 hours. That's from the time the order goes up and the amount of time it takes for your team to move and get to the location. That's assuming they have planes, ships, and vehicles ready to move them.
Good thought, though, Arthur. I mean, well done to think of that. I didn't think of that. So moving on from there, Cleve, we're getting ready to go into segment number 4, but I want to quickly mention for those of you who've just found us, if you go to survivaldispatch.news, that's our Substack. If we're broadcasting live, you'll see this window here at the top. So anytime we're broadcasting live, it'll show up on X as a notification. It'll show up at the top of our Substack. We send videos to CommiTube, but we have a love-hate relationship with them. I think we've got 440,000 subs on our big channel. They send 0 notifications, so don't count on YouTube to send you notifications. But what I wanted to mention here is that if you go to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account on Substack, you will get our daily sit rep. So here's today's sit rep situation report. Goes out in the morning, has a bunch of information on the podcast for that night, and you get all of this for free down to my signature right there. Then beyond my signature, we provide sources for our paying members. But as a free member, you get our weekly watch guide. You get early access to JJ Morris's instructional videos. If you do decide to sign up for $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year, you get 2.5 months for free. You get enrolled in the Survival Dispatch emergency notification system. You get an invite to our insanely busy private signal chat, where the volume of intel shared by people who are part of Survival Dispatch, as well as we've got some amazing members that are very, very capable and qualified. How many messages went through there yesterday, Clede?
I think we were over 4,000. I think we crossed 4,000 yesterday.
It was, I kept looking at it and going, holy shit, there's another 500 messages.
Yeah.
It was
did the Charlie Kirk broadcast. I mean, I was looking every half hour. I was look over and there's 500 messages sit there. I'm going, oh my God, how am we going to read through all these?
the volume of information exchange there is something you can't find anywhere else, full stop. But in addition to that, you also get all 37 of our Survival Dispatch Insider e-magazines, many of which are well over 100, 200 pages long. We sell them for $9.99 each, but if you sign up as a Guardian, you get them all for free. And that's basically it, but it's a good program. We're not making money off of this, by the way. We're trying to defray expenses. We pay $4,500 a month just in recurring software expenses, but we really appreciate both our vendors as well as our Guardian members for helping us defer some of those expenses. So Khalid, let's go into the fourth segment, systems under strain. So the staff is running out of gas. They're scared to death. They're suffering trauma themselves. The power's going off. Water's probably going down. They're being surged with people to be treated. Now, I'm talking the supplementary hospitals, because the tier 1 trauma center, it's gone. It's under the control of the bad guys. So now all of the downstream hospitals are in deep trouble. You got people like, honestly, Khalid, if you worked in a hospital and your wife and children were at home alone, what would you do?
I'd be going home.
Same. Because who's defending my family? It's not, there's no first responders to defend my family. I gotta go home and tend to my children, basically, and my wife. And I think a lot of people would think the same way. And I've already mentioned how backup generators, they aren't what you think they are. If the natural gas pressure is not high enough, it won't run the generators. If you have propane, you'll run out of propane. I've had whole home generators, and they're very expensive to run, and it's hard to store enough propane for the long haul. That's for sure. But also water system failures, right? Khalid, did I tell you about the company called Genesis Systems in Tampa?
Yeah.
So these guys have been making these. It's essentially an evaporator, right? In a high humid environment like Florida, their 1,000 gallon a day unit actually pulls 2,000 gallons of water out of the air per day and distills it. And they've got 100 gallon per day and 10 gallon per day units now as well. When Helene kind of kissed that part of our state, Tampa, the main trauma center in Tampa, lost water from the municipality. Genesis Systems went in, hooked up 3 of these units inside of 4 hours, and were cranking 6,000 gallons of water into that hospital. And the hospital ended up, the guys from Genesis System did it out of the goodness of their heart, right? It was very altruistic. The hospital ended up buying the units, but most hospitals don't have something like Genesis Systems to pull water out of thin air, sort of thing. So pretty interesting. So Khalid, tier 1 trauma centers down. Tier 2 and below are not in good shape.
Flooded with people.
We're waiting for the National Guard to show up to, set up portable, trauma centers and hospitals. The thing that comes to mind for me is I'm thinking that gyms at high schools, maybe conference rooms, even parking lots might turn into, temporary medical treatment areas.
Yep,
but when the comms go down, I don't know how's that get organized, right? Like how do you organize that? And on top of which, this, you've been in the middle of these terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
Who's doing crowd control?
Oh no. The herd mentality that kicks in during a terrorist attack, you could have 50 people trying to do crowd control. You cannot control that crowd. They are running in every direction they possibly can. And that's the fear we have, because in Pakistan, we have had so many terror attacks that we have gotten a little bit desensitized to it. So we can actually run through the system when we have to. The U.S. has never seen an attack at this level. I mean, the U.S. other than 9/11 has not seen a terror attack. You've had active shooters, you've had attacks on schools, but you have never seen a terror attack at this level. When this kicks off, the crowd control is impossible, because one, you're going to have people getting in their cars trying to get out of the city. That means all your roads are jammed. 2, you're going to have people running for cover, which means they become open targets for the terrorists to shoot at or to blow up. 3, you're going to have people collecting at different exfil locations outside of shopping malls, outside of buildings, outside of schools, which is another place that they're going to target, and they're going to take out as many people as they possibly can there. The problem you have is that anywhere where you have a crowd, even if it's a school parking lot and using it for triage, once you have a number of people there, you become a target for the terrorists.
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend if it's not something you've been in like you have, Khalid. So I've got a couple more questions before we move on from here. The first one would be, how can hospitals defend themselves physically while they're still functioning? So before they've been hit by the terrorists, if you had any say in the matter, what would you tell them to do in a reactionary state? Let's say they don't have any SOPs. Because I've looked at some of the SOPs for local hospitals, because I know a lot of doctors, and I know with the doctor who was in charge of the response team at the big hospital I mentioned previously, who do they call upon? What's your ad hoc response to this? In other words,
Well, what I told a couple of the hospitals I talked to, and I'll tell you the cities I talked to. Seattle, Los Angeles, Columbus, and there was a hospital in the middle of the South. I can't remember exactly where it was. I said, look, you guys can get a door locking mechanism. First, change all of your windows on all of your doors so it's bulletproof. Number one.
okay,
Number two, there's an electronic door lock system you can get that has an emergency switch. So as soon as you see that this swarm is coming towards you, lock all the doors. And it automatically locks every single door. That way nobody can get in. Keep people inside. Keep them in a room. I don't care where you keep them. But keep an armed assault team inside of your hospital someplace, so that if you are attacked, you have a team inside the hospital ready to go. And we're not saying that, do it from now. We know the date range. We know the time frame this is going to happen in. So let's say middle of November, you get these guys, you put them inside the hospital, and from the middle of November until the end of February, they're on staff for you.
Before we wrap up this segment, and I want to speak to comm systems, communications going down before we move to the next segment, but I want to ask you a question, or actually I want to ask you to recap something for the new people to Survival Dispatch News and Command 11. Talk about the mosques being set up in American hospitals.
Oh yeah.
That nobody can enter. Nobody can open the door other than the IMAM.
I know
crazy.
It's not just the IMAM. I know 4 hospitals in the U.S. and I'm not going to name them because I'm working with their security teams on getting this thing fixed. There are 4 hospitals in the U.S. that the door to the mosque looks like a wall. You cannot even see that it's a door. The only way to enter, the Muslim that is a doctor, a nurse, or part of the staff there, they have a key card that they can enter that mosque. No one else is allowed inside. No one else is allowed inside. I know for a fact they're being used as weapons depots. Because why else would you need to hide a mosque? That's a place of worship. Why would you need to hide it?
Yeah, but well, Occam's razor, the most obvious answer to your question is probably the right answer, right? So just in general, for this type of stuff, and it's somewhere where my team has spent a lot of time working since I acquired this company, is communications. So if they're not going to take down the grid, they're not going to take down the internet until word is spread on all of these horrible things that they've done. Then they'll flick the switch on that with partners like Volt Typhoon, which is a hacking group from China, Iranian Revolutionary Guard, etc. So when that happens and the cell phone network goes down, the data network goes down, that goes with cell phones, your ISPs are taken out because they take out switching centers, et cetera, et cetera. What's left for comms? So, that's a good question I have to ask my guys inside the hospitals to see what they have. But I know for a fact that the doctor I mentioned who was head of their team, same as me, he has a Garmin InReach Mini 2. So they're $349. You tether your cell phone to it. You can send and receive text messages vis-a-vis the private Iridium satellite network. The GPS comes from the government, but the comms come through Iridium. So if Khalid had a Garmin InReach Mini 2 and I had one here, we don't need any ground-based infrastructure. In other words, it's tethered to my phone, it's sending up to Iridium and down to Khalid. There's no in-between steps. If, on the other hand, I have a Mini 2 and he's in Pakistan and all of their networks are up and running, then it would go from me up to the Iridium satellite, down to the Iridium data center, and across the regular networks over to Khalid. $349. You can get them on, Garmin.com or Amazon. I think we pay $12 a month. And you can turn it off, by the way. You can pause it and hit go. So that's a great solution. Starlink is a great solution. I have Gigi fiber here, but when we had cable, a mouse walks by our hydro pole, electric pole, and poof, the electricity goes out. Like, it's just brutal. First world country, third world power grid. So Starlink is a great backup to all of that stuff. If you've seen the claims for handheld radios and you think, oh, that's great, this walkie-talkie or GMRS radio says it's good for 35 miles. No, it isn't. Like, straight up. Unless you live in the Salt Flats or you live in California with the largest repeater network in the world, you're not getting anywhere near 35 miles out of a handset. Let me just tell you that straight up. And at the end of the day with radios, it's the height of your antenna that matters more than anything else. The wattage is very secondary to that. So it's not a viable backup plan. Now, Khalid, I do have something interesting coming. A company called POC Link is sending us the LTE radios. $22 a year. Anybody who's part of your group, you can send and receive messages over the LTE network.
The minimum band network.
Unlimited around the world for $22 a year. And I want to say maybe they're like $350, $400 for a pair of them. And you pair them together. We've got 4 of them coming. But the LTE network, which was before, the 5G that we have now, it's not strong. There's not a huge amount of throughput. So the juice isn't really worth the squeeze as far as the bad guys taking out the LTE. What do they stand to gain? Not a whole lot, because over here, when you're on 5G and you drop the LTE, half the time your emails won't send. You can't open web pages, but it's a great way to communicate. We're going to keep people posted on that. So let's move on to segment number 5, which is the divide between rural communities and urban centers and uneven impact. So first and foremost, Khalid, I want you to speak to the fact of these are tier 1 trauma centers in tier 2 cities. Just to recap for our new viewers, what does that mean? And is there any intel whatsoever that shows small rural locations as being a target as far as 9/11 2.0? I know that, but I explain to our audience, because I field that question on a daily basis.
Yeah. Okay. Look, a tier 2 city is 100,000 people to 500,000 people. That's what your tier 2 city is. Most of your rural areas don't fall into that number. I mean, I think the biggest rural area I remember back when I was in the US, 30,000, 35,000, 50,000. That was going to be the size of most of your rural areas. When we're talking about tier 2 cities, you're talking about mid-level cities, suburbs of Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, Buffalo, New York, Detroit, Michigan, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington. There's an entire list in our threat assessment on the Command 11 website where you can see all the cities that we've laid out that fit this criteria. We're not talking about just places that is, a major city. The suburbs, like the Chicagoland area, the Detroit suburbs. When you talk about places like that, you can total up numbers very quickly. The thing that we worry about the most is we've been through this a lot. I mean, we've been following swatting calls, we've been following hoaxes, we've been following active shooter calls, and we've really worked on paring down where we think these attacks are going to happen. We're also listening to what the camps are saying and what cities they're talking about. We're roughly, from the original list of about 45 cities that we gave, we're down to about 25, 30 cities that we're clear on, that it's going to be in these 30 cities. But we're not going public with them yet because we're also listening to what the camps are saying. We have a habit here at Command 11 that we don't give out false intelligence. When we put our name behind it, then we make sure it's right and we make sure the information is complete.
Just so people understand the vernacular, when you say camps, you mean terrorist camps in Afghanistan where you have penetrated these groups.
Live, real life people inside of Al-Qaeda camps, ISIS camps, Taliban camps, HTS camps. Of the 150 camps in Afghanistan, we've penetrated about 85, 90 of them. And that means a live person inside who is close enough to someone who is a decision maker that we hear what's being discussed.
So I want our new followers to realize that Khalid is Sarah Adams' top source in the Middle East, as well as Jane Doe that was on the Sean Ryan show. And when I got this information, I reached out to Khalid because we had prior to that done a lot of episodes on terrorism. Now we focus on this because it's the biggest threat that we face. And the reason we keep referring to this as the long war, the southern border was left wide open for 4 years. Biden's DHS admits to allowing 200,000 SIAs into the country, special interest aliens. We've had guys on from CBP, including Special Agent J.J. Carroll, who's a good friend of mine. SIA, all that means, known terrorist or terrorist associate, period, full stop. So if the Biden DHS says it's 200,000, what's the real number? I don't know, but let's just say it's the 200,000 number. We have an Islamic army of jihadis that Biden, Mayorkas, Obama, that let just march into our country. When 9/11 2.0 hits, this is not a one and done like 9/11 1.0. We will be like Israel. We will be permanently altered in America, and there will be terrorist attacks on a regular basis, if not daily, darn near close to it. And here, let me show you something here for the people who think that maybe that's hyperbole, because it isn't. I have been tracking the religionofpeace.com for over 20 years now. Check this out. So religionofpeace.com, and let's see this. Islamic terrorists have carried out more than 48,220 deadly terror attacks since 9/11. Okay. Just since 9/11, almost over 48,000 jihadi terrorist attacks around the world. Most people hear that and they're flabbergasted. Let's go in and have a report for last month, the past 30 days, rolling reports. Okay. So during the past 30 days, there have been 125 Islamic attacks in 18 countries in which 625 people were killed and 548 were injured. And there are links to every single one of these. And there's the ones that have just happened in the past 30 days to get your head wrapped around it. That's what's coming to America. That's what happens after 9/11 2.0 happens. We live in a new normal where there are terrorist attacks. None of us in our lifetimes will see those 200,000 SIAs dealt with. This will plague America for generations. Our country will never be the same. So if you're not caught on the X during 9/11 2.0, you need to be diligent, prepared, definitely for the balance of our lifetimes and our children as well. So I just wanted to draw a point to that. So back to rural and urban again. If we have no intelligence saying that they're targeting rural areas, that's kind of good news. And that's consistent with what we've been preaching for quite a while, Khalid. So even before you and I met, 83% of Americans live in urban centers. The vast majority have nowhere to bug out to. They don't have a bug out location, and you're not bugging out to the woods to live off the land. 1929, 3 months after the market crashes in the Great Depression, it became front page news when somebody spotted a deer, because everything that was edible was harvested from the land. So the strategy that we've been giving people who can't necessarily afford a second property, which is a big deal. If you have a storage unit in your city, consider getting a storage unit out of your city, moving your stuff there, stocking it up with food, water, power backup system, solar panels, guns, ammo, the whole 9 yards. And if nothing else, when shit goes down, you have somewhere to get to. Distance equals safety. So it's a fairly economical option to have a bug out location in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know that we really have anything else on the rural side other than I guess I have one question here, and I think the answer is fairly obvious, but which populations in urban centers are most at risk of being, quote unquote, left behind?
Left behind meaning not hit by the terror attack?
No, left behind as in no food available to them, basically hung out to dry, for lack of a better term. I'm thinking inner cities is what crosses my mind.
That's the first place you're going to go, is the inner cities, because again, people that are part of the middle class and have the financial ability will be able to stock up on food from right now. So they'll a little bit every month, they'll be buying and buying and buying, and they'll keep all that food stored. Wealthy people will get out of the city before when the attack pops. It's your people that are lower middle class and poor that will be stuck and will end up being, cannon fodder for the terrorists. And even after the attack is done, finding food, finding a place to go, they won't even be able to leave the city. So they're stuck wherever they are.
Yeah, I've got, maybe not quite this extreme, but visions of The Walking Dead in my head as you're saying that. Basically, hollowed out urban centers. And I guess the only other thing is it's not really a lifesaver, but we have a lot of doctors now here, doctors' offices that provide telemedicine. Yep. Where you can do a call over, FaceTime phone, whatever the case may be. It's available for some of your stuff, but it's run of the mill stuff, prescribing you a Z-Pack or something like that. So yeah, I don't think it's a solution to anything larger. So let's move into segment.
If you're selling at risk go down, then how do you contact the doctor?
Yeah, exactly. So let's go into segment number 6. Trying to mitigate these risks, preparedness, coming up with policies. Yep. So at this particular point in time, the most urgent steps for hospitals, from my perspective, Khalid, would be running drills, working on redundancy. So 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none, and hardening their infrastructure. Could you speak to those 3 things? So redundancy and drills and hardening infrastructure.
Well, let's start with hardening the infrastructure. There's a lot of things you can do to harden a hospital's infrastructure. The cement barricades, those are fantastic. I mean, the way you set them up is like this. So a vehicle has to slow down and move through the barricades to be able to get to the hospital. It'll seem very annoying for a lot of patients in the beginning, but it will be something that will save your lives later. Because when your attackers have to move through that system, they cannot get through that quick. Number 2, put up a barrier around the hospital. I mean, you don't have to think of it from the point of view of it's a useless expense. Having a barrier around your hospital, be it a fence, be it some kind of a guard around you, and put an electric system into it. So if an attack starts, flip the switch and turn on the electricity to the fence. So if anyone dares to cut the fence or try and climb over it, they'll be electrocuted on the spot. The attack is repulsed. That's the first thing, hardening the outside. Number 2, on the inside, make sure that you run regular drills. This is the one thing I have told every hospital administrator I've talked to. How often do you run a drill? How often do you run a fire drill? How often do you run a drill of moving to a certain location if something were to happen? How much backup power do you have? How many different levels of backup power do you have? Do you have a supply of clean water? Do you have a way out for your doctors? That if, for example, you were to get hit, is there a way that you can evac that hospital within 40 minutes, an hour? So if you hear there's attacks going on in the city, is there a way for you to evacuate your hospital? Is there a place that you can move all of your patients into one location and lock the door and stay safe? If you're not thinking at that level, you've already lost the battle. That's the second thing. Number 3, when you talk about redundancy, if you're normally buying 5 cartons of bandages, start buying 20 cartons. Because the amount of medical supplies you're going to need during an attack, even inside the hospital, terrorists are inside the hospital, they're shooting people. You can provide treatment to people inside the hospital that are not critically wounded. Those things you need to be planning for right now. You need to make sure that your nurses and your doctors have learned that there is no such thing as I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse. When a doctor does not need to perform an operation, he can do the job of a nurse. And there are many nurses that have the ability to provide critical care when they need to, because they've sat in on enough operations, they understand what needs to be done. So if a doctor's not available, you can do that. You can also provide that training to your nurses inside the hospital so they can provide critical care if and when this attack happens. So that's your 3rd level. Your 4th level, medications, antibiotics. And I hate saying it this way, but the antipsychotic medicines, because when this happens, you're going to have a lot of normal people going crazy. They're going to freak out. They're going to need Demerol. They're going to need injections to calm them down. Otherwise, they're going to go running right at a terrorist and get shot, and that's going to be the end of the day for them. There are a lot of things that we tell hospitals, and I've gone through this with administrators. I've written SOPs for administrators and saying, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. And I see the comment from Doherty that, you know, doctors stepping down to nurse levels because they're arrogant. At that point, when your hospital is under attack, if that doctor is going to be arrogant, then he's going to get shot. Because if you're just standing around and not worried about, you know, what's happening, you're the first target they're going to shoot. So you guys have to, and I've said this to every hospital I've spoken to in the US, and I'm now at something around 30, 35 hospitals that I've spoken to myself. I have told all of them that you need to build a mentality of, if the world were to collapse and we were locked inside this hospital, how do we function? How do we operate? How do we distribute the tasks? If you cannot figure that out, then it's game over. Your hospital will be taken and you won't have any control of what to do.
So it's bottom of the ninth. We're running out of time based on the known timeline, say November to Ramadan, February 18th, 2026.
Yep.
What's one thing that hospitals could do between now and then that would have the biggest impact if and when this shit goes down?
Harden the outside.
Okay.
Because if you make it difficult for them to get in, you've already won half the battle.
Makes sense. How about the I didn't come from you. I read it somewhere else, so I can't speak to the veracity of it, saying that attacks like Timothy McVeigh on the Alfred P. Murrah building, that a box truck pulls up in front of a trauma center and blows up and grenades the entire front of the building.
That's the plan.
While the bad guys go in the other doors.
Yep.
I mean, how do you harden against that? I can't think of any way you could harden against that.
That's why, look, if you start putting barriers up, and we told one hospital that was really worried. They said, you know, we don't know how to keep people out. I said, metal barrier. Put a guard, an armed guard at that metal barrier. So if it's an ambulance coming in, you lift it up and you let the ambulance through. If you know the ambulance. If it's a critical care patient that needs to go through, you need to just stop them for 2 seconds and ask them, what do you need to get into the emergency bay for? And you can let them through. But if you don't think about it right now, you cannot harden for it, because right now it's the end of September. You've got October and until the end of November. You've got 2 months. 2 months. We've been talking about this since March of this year. If hospitals have started, and there are a number of hospitals that when the FBI first put out the alert and said, oh, okay, you know, this is possible. A lot of hospitals started hardening at that time. They are still secure to this day. But the hospitals that when the FBI pulled back the warning and said, well, no, it's not a credible threat, all of a sudden, a lot of hospitals pulled back a lot of the hardening they'd done. And we just looked at them and went, you've lost your minds. You've lost your minds. Once you've done it, leave it.
And Khalid, legit comment here from Rogue Ferret 17.
Yeah.
Can you address that, please? And again, for people who don't know this, Khalid grew up here, okay? So
yeah,
when he speaks of America, it's not like he's, you know, a foreigner. He's one of us. He just so happens to be stationed in Pakistan at the current time. But go ahead and address that comment, because it's legit.
Look, back in the day, I was in the U.S. up until 97. And I go back and forth every 18 months. And I spend 2-3 months in the U.S. My parents are still there. My wife is there. So I go back and forth. I sent my wife back when things got a little bit difficult for us here and I had to move to safe houses. Back in the day, we all believed the same thing, that this could never happen in America, because the threat possibility in the US of that happening was impossible. The same thing, the same belief existed up until September 10th, 2001, that this cannot happen here. The problem is that now, because of Biden and Obama's policies, the number of terrorists that have entered into the United States, that are sitting in your cities, and they are sitting in your sanctuary cities. They're not sitting in other cities. They are taking safe haven in your sanctuary cities where the police will not touch them, where no one will let ICE get to them, and they're not being deported. They're not being checked. They're not being followed up on. I'll give you a simple example. About a month ago in Chicago, a woman who was hired by the HVAC company to go and check HVAC systems in an apartment complex walked into an apartment that was full of crates of grenades and crates of rifles and boxes of ammo. The whole apartment was full. Now, if that was me and I was the Chicago police force, I would have not sent the police in to empty the place. Why? I would have put police outside, put a camera in the hallway, watched who went in. When they came out and they got a block away from the building, arrest them there, because then you would have probably figured out where the terror cell is. Just 2 weeks ago in England, we got reports that there were hotel rooms that were full of weapons, full of grenades. This is before the 13th of September, when they were planning on having the rally in London. And a lot of people thought that all of that weaponry was being loaded up for that attack, for that rally. Thankfully, everything went down fine. I'll give you a personal example. 10 days ago, we worked with MI6 and took out an ISIS safe house in the city of London that had 15 attackers inside of it. That took us going literally into a literal name calling, where we were insulting the MI6 bosses and saying, if you will not take them down, we will put the address out on X and we will notify Tommy Robinson and let him go get them himself. And that's when they moved. Your law enforcement right now, even just today, I was talking to a serving Canadian Armed Forces officer. When we passed the information that he gave to us to the FBI hesitated on it and said, well, we don't know if we should get involved. We don't know if we should take action. We don't know if we should do this. We have a confirmed terror cell in a city in Canada that we have told the FBI about. This is today. This is literally 4 hours ago. And the FBI went, we don't know if we should do anything. We don't know if we should do anything. This is the state right now that even your law enforcement is going, we don't know if we should do anything. And we on the private intelligence side are sitting here going, oh my God, if we had this information, we'd be putting a strike team in play. And we'd be taking the house. We'd be taking the location down.
A quick comment to that, Khalid, and then I have a video to play, is that the typical disaster protocol from a communications and orders chain of command is concerned. The feds communicate to the state communicates to the counties communicate to local PD, municipalities, etc. We've had countless law enforcement agencies reach out to us. We've provided them with the information that Khalid, Jane Doe, and Sarah Adams have provided. And the chief has come back and said, well, we haven't got anything from up above, so this can't be correct, and put their head back in the sand. Now, hopefully, because of the National Counterterrorism Center and Joe Kent last week putting this notice out, maybe that'll change some of that, and that would be great. Speaking of intelligence, before I forget, if you go to deaddropintel.org, my good friend and business partner, Mike Glover, started an intel group on Substack, and he's built the A team of open source intelligence. So it's Mike Glover, Khalid Muhammad, Sarah Adams, let's just say JD, Matt Butler, Ryan Geho, Keith Graves from Christian Warrior Training, and Mark Bauer, that's right, from MI5 and MI6. And prior to that, he was a Teams guy. I mean, it is truly the A team of open source intel, which doesn't include me. I'm just the tech guy behind the scenes. But you can sign up for a free account at deaddropintel.org. And maybe I should bring that up just so you all can see it. quickly, but I do have a video based on what you spoke about. So let me just show this quickly, Clede. So there's what it looks like. Current article up there is from Ryan Geho. So Ryan was former CIA, Department of State. He's now in private security. He's a walking, talking encyclopedia of security related stuff. You can see there was an article from JD here that Khalid put up. Oh, I forgot. General Paul Valley is part of our team as well. So here's an article from the general. Here's one from Mike Glover and so on. So deaddropintel.org will take you to that. Now here's the next thing I want to show, just because Khalid mentioned it. And we've played this before. And the date on this is January 14th. So quite a ways back. Be ready for attacks, America. Explosives found in Chicago South Side high-rise apartments. HVAC worker finds. I came across some C4, some explosives, a rifle, a lot of fake IDs, and a lot of fireman stuff, a lot of police force stuff. It was fake, meaning uniforms. We keep telling people, if you're on the X when shit goes down to 9/11 2.0, you cannot trust that what looks like first responders are first responders, because they plan on, imposters will be at play, just like in multiple terrorist attacks, not something new. So anyway, this says all these illegal migrants weren't just imported for votes and cheap labor. There are planned attacks coming. It's 2 minutes and 6 seconds. I don't think we have to play the whole one, just thinking back to the last time we played it, but I will play enough that you get the gist of it.
Guys, the suspicious materials in question were apparently discovered by a contractor who was scheduled to service the units inside this apartment building. We talked to her, and what she says she found were pretty clear red flags that needed to be reported to authorities.
I had the master key, and I went in there, and I came across a lot of things, and I was like, that don't seem right.
Melissa Caraway works for an HVAC company that was scheduled to service units at 533 East 33rd Place in the Lake Meadows neighborhood. She says residents get advance notice that they'll be making the rounds and entering their units. When no one answered the door, she says she let herself in.
I came across some C4, some explosives, a rifle, a lot of fake IDs, a lot of fireman stuff, a lot of police force stuff, and it just looked like it was fake,
She says the discovery happened around 10 a.m. in a unit on the 6th floor. She wasn't sure what to do at first, but says she called police about a half hour later. Video of the response shows law enforcement with ballistic shields, others with rifles. The entire building was evacuated, officers going door by door to tell residents they needed to leave.
I was afraid because I didn't know what was going on. So, again, I've been out here since like 11:15, 11:30, and I still don't have any information.
After several hours inside, CPD says
So I'm going to go ahead and stop it there, because that's everything that's really relevant from that particular video. So Khalid, I just want to address a couple quick things. Number one, I saw some people in the live chat talking about programming their radios to their local first responders. Be aware that over 2/3 of law enforcement agencies in the United States, city PD, SOs, etc., use encrypted communications. And not only do they use encrypted communications, they leverage what's called channel hopping. So we have business class radios where we have our own frequencies that are dedicated to us. They're encrypted, and we have 5 channels dedicated that we paid for through the FCC, and we've got them for a 50-mile radius. We can channel hop 3 channels every second. They can channel hop 100 channels every second, the Harris radios in particular. You are not going to hear anything that those guys say, period, full stop. Number 2, if it's the 1/3 of agencies that don't have encryption, you still may not hear anything because of the channel hopping. And if you do hear anything, you're definitely not going to be able to transmit, because you have to have a matching, I won't explain all the technology, but you have to have a matching key in order to do that stuff. So the days of being able to tune into cops, they're almost gone. There's some small agencies that have it, but that's not going to happen. I saw some people mentioning some handsets. Listen, we have tested everything out there you can possibly imagine. I have a 40-foot antenna right there. And here in Florida, we've got a lot of tall trees. We live in a residential neighborhood. We've got a bunch of, homes around us, no high rises. And the best radios will go about 1.5 miles, 2 miles with the obstructions at handset to handset. Then if we go mobile or base radio through this 40-foot antenna, you're talking 10 or 11 miles to a mobile radio, and handsets maybe 5 or 6 miles. It really depends on your geography. It's not a viable tool for long range communication, again, unless you live in California and you're close to repeaters where you can hop off of one to the next. When you look at it and says, oh, it's got 35-mile range, yeah, on the salt flats. That's not happening in the majority of America. So just from an expectation standpoint, don't get your expectations all high. The other thing is when you buy FRS radios, fixed antenna, the same 22 channels as GMRS that everybody else buys from Walmart, when the shit hits the fan, every channel will be jammed up with people within about a 1 mile circumference of you. They're about as useless as tits on a bull, to be quite frank. And those little small antennas that are part of the package that are affixed to it, you can't unscrew them and put better antennas on. And the thing is with antennas, we've got a recap coming up soon, probably within the next 2 weeks. Dr. Michael Fabian and I are going to do a recap on all these different comms things. The antenna has to be matched to the radio and the frequency. A lot of radios that come with a stock antenna, like a lot of the Baofangs, they're horribly mismatched. So you lose approximately 50% of the power of the radio because the antenna doesn't jive. Now, with that being said, the Baofeng UV25 comes with the best out-of-the-box antenna I've seen on any of these, call it home user type radios. But you're still not going to get a long distance, but you do get 1-to-1 on an SWR meter. So that's that. Let me see here. Oh, I get asked a lot of questions as far as our Signal chat is concerned. Here's the process. You sign up to be a Guardian. You install Signal on your phone. If it's not installed right, you do not hide your number. If you hide your number, we can't see you to send an invite. So please don't send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com until you've made sure that you're not hiding your number, because we get a high volume of contacts on this and it takes a lot of time going back and forth. We want you to be part of it, but I'm just asking you, make sure you're not hiding your number. Send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com. And further to that, I rarely, if ever, answer DMs on any platform. I get 300 to 500 legitimate emails a day. It's everything I can do to stay on top of my inbox. So if you've sent me DMs and I haven't answered, it's not because I don't give a shit. It's not because I don't want to hear what you have to say. I do not have the bandwidth. Khalid will tell you, Khalid and I work 16, 17 hours a day. We've had recent days where Khalid and I both put in well over 18 hours in one day. I don't have time to check all the DMs. So if you send an email, support@survivaldispatch.com, it gets copied to a bunch of people. Chances are much better that somebody's going to answer that. So
I do pop in every once in a while.
And I appreciate that. So at the end of the day, I think we've made our points that hospitals are prime soft targets. They're very much a battlefield in what we could call asymmetric warfare, meaning that there's no winning for us on this. Once they take that hospital, again, our choices are blow the building up, ain't going to happen, or storm it with commandos. And they have SOPs in place for this now. We storm it with commandos. They set off sarin nerve gas. They set off IEDs. Nobody's, I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people are getting out alive, put it that way, because their intention is to kill everybody in the hospital. Yeah. Khalid, quick question on that. What's the average bed size for these tier 1 trauma centers? Is it like 2,500, 3,000 beds, if I recall?
Yeah.
So you're looking at, between staff and patients, you could have a few thousand casualties in one hospital. So that would add up fast across 10, 15 different cities. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, there has to be a sense of urgency now. Thank God Joe Kent has taken the bull by the horns. Khalid, I want you to speak to this because this is unforgivable. I've met Sebastian Gorka twice. He's a brilliant guy. He's super smart. He's in a position he's not qualified for. He cock-blocked Sarah Adams from meeting with Joe Kent and sharing all of this information.
Not just Joe Kent. Sarah was supposed to speak at a Senate hearing, and Seb Gorka canceled her appearance.
He cock-blocked her across the board. Yep. Finally, somebody got through to Joe Kent. And Joe Kent, by the way, was a Green Beret who served with my business partner, Mike Glover. And Joe Kent is a solid guy. Yep. Anyway, now that she met with him, which is about 3.5 weeks ago, and he put out the warning as far as the pending attacks on America are concerned, the window of time is very short. Khalid, just I'd like you to speak to, it's not just Sebastian Gorka, Tom Barrack, and all kinds of other civil servants who've been told what's coming have basically stuck their head in the sand. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to speak to that before we wrap this episode up.
Okay, so every ambassador you've got in the Middle East is an absolute idiot. Tom Barrack is, I swear, he's taken his oath with Al Qaeda or with the Islamic State, because the amount of support he gives Jolani, you would think that he was his blood brother. We have no other options other than Jolani. There is no plan B. He shares our objectives. When you listen to Sebastian Gorka talk about the Taliban, he says the same things. They have the same objectives we have. They say they have the same goals we have. I don't know what Taliban you're talking about when you're sitting on a think tank stage. He was on the Heritage Foundation stage, and he made the statement that the Taliban, well, they share our values, they share our objectives. And I just went, what? They share what? You have every terror group around the world inside of Afghanistan, and they share your values, they share your objectives. What exactly are your objectives? The CIA is checking intelligence on terrorism with the Taliban. So if I'm looking for a murderer and I ask the murderer's friends, do you know this guy? Do you think they're going to tell me that they know him? They're going to say, oh, no, we've never heard of him. We've never seen him. On top of that, the Taliban are dressing their own guys up as ISIS, sending them into Pakistan. When they come back from Pakistan, they're killing them and then telling America, look, we're the good guys. We're on your side. We're killing the ISIS fighters. Write us a check. Now, I'm going to drop a bombshell for you right now. U.S. counterterrorism, the CIA pays the Taliban $100 million per month for counterterrorism activities. Now, when you start thinking about $100 million, 9/11 cost $500,000. 9/11 1.0 cost $500,000. You're giving the Taliban $100 million for counterterrorism, $40 million a week that you're giving them for running the country.
Hold on, we got to put a fine point on this. So Clede's numbers are on the money. The additional piece to this, though, is that we're sending $5 million a week to the top 5 people in the Taliban government. And we have a bunch of smaller buckets where we're sending the Taliban money. The weekly transfer from us to them averages around $87 million per week. So while $100 million a month is supposedly earmarked for fighting the terrorists, it's a bigger number when you consider all the other stuff to help Afghanis with food, water, rebuilding, whatever.
Yeah. And since Trump came into power, since this administration came to power, $1 billion has been given to the Taliban. Trump administration has been in power for 8 months.
Don't even get me. My watch is going off. I've got it muted now. That stuff just pisses me off. Black Creek Armory is on the money here, by the way. Hospitals are not for giving care first. Hospitals are billing centers for their doctor group owners. Hospitals are profit centers. Understand this. They will not inventory disaster levels of supplies. Amen to that. Well said, Black Creek Armory, like right on the money there. So anyway, that kind of ties up our main subject. We got a couple little things to close up here. Oh, this is one of my favorite parts now of our episodes, Khalid. We get to do the hero of the day, sponsored by. I feel like we're like broadcasting Monday Night Football every time.
We need to add John Madden at the end, like going boom.
I mean, the guys at Carnival, good friends of ours, we absolutely love their product. We love their values, by the way. These are hardcore Americans. So tonight's hero, let me get it teed up because we had that extra one in there for Chicago. Let me get it back up here. The people from our generation are going to absolutely love this because it's total truth. John Wayne.
Yeah.
John Wayne is, and I'm not joking either. John Wayne is our hero of today, the Carnival hero of today, for one reason and one reason only. He embodied toxic masculinity. And toxic masculinity is something we need a whole lot more of. And if we had what the left likes to call toxic masculinity, that the rest of us just call masculinity, the country would be way further ahead. So God bless John Wayne. God bless anybody who grew up with John Wayne. God bless anybody who aspired to be John Wayne, who's a guy's guy. We're bringing back toxic masculinity, period, full stop. So thanks to the guys from Carnival for that. By the way, there have been a bunch of messages flying by here. So we're broadcasting to 9 different platforms. It aggregates them all together here. And I'm sorry if I missed some of these. So Vic the Red, $5. Thank you very much. I just saw another one that was $20 from Tommy K. And I'm probably missing some, and I apologize. We do have somebody, looks like they're going to come on board as a producer, which means Khalid and I can focus on what we need to focus on and not worry about the technical back-end hosting piece. All right. So next one after that is the reader submitted story of the day. And this is from our friend Dale. He's in our Signal chat. I call him Dale the Machine. He's up at all hours of the night and morning like I am myself. And I see him in there, just a slew of messages. And this is the problem with our country right here. From Tommy Lauren. Imagine being this inwardly ugly on the day of Charlie's memorial. If you don't have anything decent to say, take the day off. 27 seconds.
You know what? One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was, specifically to us.
We've spoken at length with regards to Jasmine Crockett. She's a piece of shit, straight up. There's no other way to describe this. She's a racist, peddler of bullshit. This is the problem with our country right here. Khalid, who said yesterday when we were doing the coverage on Charlie's thing that we needed a mass extinction event for liberals in this country?
I can't remember. Was it?
Oh my God. Whoever said it.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Because we need to get rid of.
We're not advocating violence. Let me just be clear. We are not advocating violence.
No violence. But I still remember when somebody said in one of our podcasts that we could sit. I think it was John Martin said it yesterday. We could sit in barbershops. It didn't matter if you were Republican or Democrat, and we could have conversations. Nobody get pissed off. Nobody get violent. Nobody got insulting. Everybody would have a fun conversation. We'd all learn something from each other, and we'd walk away. And that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, not at all. And you know what? I mean, Robert Robertson is the one above that. Let me see. Their messages are moving so fast here. Sorry, apologies. Taz, that is one dumb person. That says it all right there. Amen. Amen. Well said, indeed. So the next piece that we have is to do our conflicted question of the day. I'm telling you, I know what Khalid's going to say, but say again.
Mine's easy. This is an easy one for me.
Someone in your inner circle of trusted friends has committed an unforgivable act that only you are a witness to. He doesn't know he doesn't know you are aware, of what happened. You decide death is the proper punishment for what he did. There is no other way. Would you take care of him secretly or discuss his fate with the others and burden them as well? Khalid, you get first swing.
No. Why would you talk to anybody? Take him out back and shoot him. That's it. Dig a hole and dump him.
Keep in mind, this is the guy who, what term was it you coined again?
Battlefield execution.
Battlefield execution. So I'm going to take the other way. I'm absolutely going to inform everybody for a very specific reason. I met a guy years ago who's become a friend of mine, and he used car salesman, the most honest used car guy I've ever met. He owns his own business. And we were doing a deal on a Jeep I bought for my wife at the time. And I saw this picture on his wall of him and somebody else with these 2 black street glides. And I said to him, is that your father? And he said, yeah, that's my father. He was the most important man in my life, and went on to tell all these life lessons that he taught him. And then he said something, people, Khalid, they say something and it just leaves a mark, like it sticks with you for the rest of your life. He said, that guy there taught me the most important lesson in my life. He said, if you tell the truth, it'll never get worse.
Yep.
And what an amazing way of saying that, right? So I would take the guy back. I would let everybody know exactly what happened. Now, I wouldn't let him get a pass, and I wouldn't let him live out his life incarcerated, especially when I hear things like unforgivable acts, my mind immediately goes to, pedophiles and rapists, people that you can never fix. There's not a thing you can do to fix these people. They're just a drain on society, no matter how you cut it. Pull the pin, be done with them. So anyway, that's it for our conflicted question of the night. Khalid and S2 will be back tomorrow night with the Command 11 sit rep, usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Randy and I will be back Wednesday night with Khalid on Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. Next episode in our long war series, which is going to be the rise of the black market. So talking bartering plus criminal networks. Filling gaps. We've heard Randy, combat wounded Green Beret, very good friend of mine, discuss multiple times that when Baghdad went down, everybody looted like a son of a bitch for 24 to 36 hours. And then the Marauders came out and they took everything from the looters at gunpoint. And human beings are human beings. When there's no food, people will do extreme things to get a hold of food. Want to thank our friends one more time at Carnival. We don't get affiliate payments from these guys. We get monthly stipend that helps us offset bills. Carnival.com, code word or discount code, eat meat, all one word, 10% off, free shipping over $99 orders, 100% American beef, chicken, and pork, no mRNA, no histamines, no antibiotics. Even the bags are made in America. That bag was 6 ounces of steak. When you rehydrate it, again, it's got a 25-year shelf life, makes 1.5 pounds of premium American beef. They've got single serve units now, so you can take them with you off grid, hunting, hiking, fishing, overlanding, whatever the case may be. If you haven't seen Mike Glover's video that he did on Camp Trail Food, go watch. His mother's from Korea. He makes fun of her accent in the cooking video. It's funny as hell. I told him, actually, I said, you're going to go to hell for doing that. Jokingly, of course. Mike's a great guy. Can't say enough good things about him. But that's it. We're all done for tonight. Again, Khalid will be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Between now and then, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless America. And enjoy the closing video. It's a new one tonight.
They are touching all the kids, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them. Someone. I won't lie to you here. Every single man or woman who has stood their ground, everyone who has fought this agenda got canceled. But where they have failed, you will succeed.
Why?
I've seen an agent identify as a concrete wall. Men have emptied entire clips at them and hit nothing but air. Yet their strength and their speed are still based in a world that is built on rules. Because of that, they will never be as strong or as fast as you can be.
What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge lawsuits?
No, Neo. If you identify as an innocent human being, you won't have to.
I identify as an innocent human being.